The International Brotherhood of Electric Workers New York State Utility Council represents over 15,000 utility workers in the state, and we proudly share this informational DVD to help understand the enormous economic and social impact from the need to replace and upgrade portions of the New York State transmission system. These old boys were likely part of the first commercially distributed power in the world, which was sent from hydro generation in Niagara Falls, New York to light the streetlights in Buffalo. Here are some original photos of that initial transmission line, and the condition of some of today's transmission equipment reflects that amazing history. Much like stress will break the weak link in any chain, extreme weather additionally exposes flaws in today's transmission systems. Electric deregulation in New York State brought with it a promise that open competition would keep rates low. Unfortunately, what was not anticipated was that our original transmission systems were designed for the specific geographic areas for the New York State established franchises from decades ago, and not designed for the long-distance transmission of electricity. Exhaustive studies have concluded that we are at a critical time of need in New York State to replace portions of the transmission system simply due to age. We can additionally seize the opportunity to upgrade conductors, address congestion, reduce rates, and create thousands of jobs in New York State. Quoting now from Governor Cuomo's New York State energy agenda, New York continues to experience high levels of transmission congestion, rising from $72 million in 2004 to $243 million in 2008. As a result, New York electricity customers are prevented from buying power from the least expensive producers. Today, our transmission infrastructure faces significant bottleneck issues that not only hamper this mutually beneficial flow of energy, but threaten the reliability of our energy supply. A recent Federal Department of Energy report stated that New York is part of the nation that continues to experience high levels of transmission congestion. If a generation source is available, but the transmission capacity to transport the power is not, that source is rendered unusable outside of its immediate area. Aging transmission infrastructure can also lead to system failures that can threaten public safety and cost businesses and residents hundreds of millions of dollars. To make matters worse, the inability to get power to market is contributing to the struggles of numerous upstate power generators. 3 Western New York power generators have invested hundreds of millions of dollars into state-of-the-art emission control equipment just in the past few years as a commitment to continue doing business in New York State. Yet one of those plants recently filed for bankruptcy protection, while the 2 others struggle to stay afloat. The persistent neglect of the New York State transmission congestion problem has spawned a radical plan by a developer to run a 1,000-megawatt extension cord from New York City to Quebec, which denies any New York State power generators an opportunity to compete, leaving New York State power generators feeling deceived on the promises that deregulation would deliver full and open competition. Quoting from this article, upstate power plants won't benefit from the extension cord, and they see it as a slap in the face if regulators approve it. That's because the state's existing high-voltage transmission system is too old and in many places inadequate to carry all of the electricity from upstate power plants to the population centers downstate, a problem known as congestion. And at a time when the state needs to be upgrading its own lines, it will allow someone else to bypass the problem. They see this as a threat to the open markets that were painstakingly created during deregulation in the late 1990s." Unquote. There is good news on the horizon. Governor Cuomo announced in January of 2012 during his State of the State address his commitment to a major policy to facilitate a $2 billion investment into the New York State transmission system and deliver power trapped because of transmission congestion through investment into our aged, neglected New York State transmission lines. Listen in to hear what was described by NYPA President Gil Quinones regarding Governor Cuomo's bold leadership to advance a major energy policy.
We'll hear from Gil Quinones on what is a really exciting, revolutionary idea that I think is going to make a major difference in the state. It's going to be shocking in its impact, which is the energy highway that we talk about, likening it to the Eisenhower highway grid. And I'm very excited about it. Gil has been all over it, and Gil is going to give us some more information on it now.
Thank you. The governor in his 2012 State of the State address put forward a sweeping public-private initiative to upgrade and modernize New York State electric system. And it is a very critical, as the governor mentioned, initiative for the state. It promises to provide clean, reliable, safe, and environmentally responsible energy for generations of New Yorkers while creating jobs and spurring private investment in the state. And as we recover from the deepest economic downturn since the Great Depression, the governor has made abundantly clear that there is no better time than today to invest in our infrastructure and to take bold and courageous actions to spur a stronger economic future for New York State. The Energy Highway initiative addresses the following realities. We have an aging generation and transmission infrastructure in the state, and I will discuss that in a little bit more detail as I go through my presentation. We have congestion points in our transmission system, historic congestion points, such as in the areas between Utica and Albany and the Hudson Valley. Especially in the hottest of the hottest days, we do not have an effective and efficient way to transmit electricity where it is produced and to where the load centers are in the state. We also need to prepare for upcoming environmental regulations at the federal level. It's not widely known, but there are at least 6 critical environmental rulemakings at the EPA that will impact the electric infrastructure industry across the nation. With technology from our homes, flat screen TVs, to new materials and controls of our grid, we need to evolve and adapt our electric system. And lastly, similar to the governor's initiatives in investing in our roads, bridges, wastewater, water infrastructure, and flood control facilities, investing in our energy infrastructure provides tremendous economic opportunity and job creation in our state. But before I go on, I've been asked, what is the Energy Highway? And so what I'd like to do is to describe to you the 4 parts that comprise our energy infrastructure. It starts with generation, which are power plants, including wind farms; transmission, which is the backbone to transmit our electricity; distribution, that connects the wires to eventually our homes and businesses. While the governor's strategy is still focused on energy efficiency and advancing clean energy technologies, when we mention or when we say the Energy Highway, we mean the generation and the transmission portion of the energy infrastructure spectrum. And it is an aging infrastructure, as I had mentioned. First, with transmission, the utilities in New York State, including the New York Power Authority and the Long Island Power Authority, have been planning and looking at the condition of our grid for the past 2 years and the things that we need to do to make sure that it's ready for the future. In this chart, all the dark lines, this is a map of the state and our transmission system. All the dark lines are transmission infrastructure that are expected to be replaced or upgraded over the next 10 years. And it is an extensive system. Similarly, with our power plants, about 42% of our power plants in the state are over 40 years old. 22% are over 50 years old. Just to give you some numbers, when I say 40 years old, that's about 360 individual power plants of various sizes and types in the state. Very clear that it needs vital investment and renewal. So the governor has formed a task force of the relevant statewide economic development and environmental agencies to collaborate, to work together, and to advance this initiative. And we have already begun work. We are excited and we are determined to make sure that we execute and implement this initiative as effectively and efficiently as possible. So what are our next steps? First, we are hosting a summit at Columbia University to bring the best minds in terms of energy policy, other states and region where we can learn best practices and lessons learned. Our partners in the federal government, from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, Department of Energy, along with our own state regulators and state energy entities to discuss creating the right environment to spur investment in our state. We will then issue a request for information. We will cast a wide net to get the best ideas from developers and investors to solve this energy highway dilemma. After that, we will have a conference of interested parties and potential responders to make sure that they understand what is expected in the RFI. And in the late spring, we will get the responses of the RFI, analyze that result, and create an action plan that we will submit as a task force to the governor. You know, the first power plant was built in Lower Manhattan, exactly on Pearl Street. And the first successful transmission of long-distance transmission of electricity occurred in Western New York from Niagara Falls to Buffalo. With the governor's vision of the energy highway, New York is once again poised to lead, to be the leader in innovation and in the electric industry sector. And for a utility person like me, an engineer like me, that is pretty cool and exciting. Thank you very much.
The New York State IBEW Utility Council shares NYPA President Gil Quinones' excitement over the upcoming transmission task force work, and Governor Cuomo is to be commended for his leadership in addressing this major issue. A recent study conducted by the Brattle Group details that 12,000 to 15,000 New York State jobs will be realized for each $1 billion spent on transmission work, and New York State power generation developers will be newly confident that they can get their product to the robust New York City marketplace, creating the potential for thousands of additional power generation construction jobs, likely simultaneous to the New York State transmission employment boom. A New York State solution to a New York State problem means thousands of jobs for New Yorkers in the repair and replacement of aged New York State transmission lines and in the construction of power generation projects. This includes thousands of megawatts of currently stalled New York State-based renewable projects that will get a positive signal to move ahead from Governor Cuomo's delivered energy highway plan. Thank you for your time and interest. Thanks also to the Albany Times-Union, Dunkirk Observer, Buffalo News, and the Wires Group for commissioning the Brattle study, and a special thanks to Governor Andrew Cuomo and NYPA President Gil Quinones.